This is my June reads, my June wrap up on what I've read this month. 12 read books, 1 DNF, 2 audiobooks, and 1 was nonfiction. Let's get into the actual books I read. There are a few that I got from my library that I don't currently have anymore because they come every 2 weeks. So the first one is actually one that my library bought me. It was called Hot British Boyfriend by Christy Boyce. I read one of her other books that I bought at Barnes & Noble on a whim because I thought the cover was cute, and I ended up really liking her. Ended up really liking her book, so I requested 2 other ones that she had at my local library. They're all YA books. They're all little romance love stories. Hot British Boyfriend was adorable. This girl got embarrassed, or she embarrassed herself with a guy that she had a crush on. Turns out he didn't like her back, and she ran away to a study abroad program to escape from her embarrassment. And she had this goal where she wanted to be able to post online of this hot British boyfriend that she found so that she wouldn't be as embarrassed when she went back home. So she has a fellow study abroad classmate help her to find a British boyfriend, kind of like help her. She asked him for help on catching a guy, and she in return will help him with the girl he has a crush on, but she doesn't realize that the crush is on her, that he likes her. So it was really cute. I loved it. I thought it was a great story. Give you some happy vibes. So next we have The Prison Healer. We have The Prison Healer. It's another bookmobile book, another book they brought me to my house. My sister-in-law read it and told me that she loved it, and she's like, you've got to read this book. And I wasn't honestly sure if I was going to like it. From the description, it sounded strange, but then sometimes I guess fantasy books do sound strange. But I ended up absolutely loving it. There was like twists and turns through the whole thing, and then the end of this book ended on like this massive, I don't want to say like cliffhanger, but it kind of like reveals something that you don't know through the whole book, and it's like, what? So I definitely can't wait to get to the second book and like continue on with that story. It was a great recommendation by my sister-in-law. Shout out Brandy. Alright, the next one was the only nonfiction that I read this month, that is Wreck My Life. Mo came to our church and gave a message, and I loved it, and I ended up coming home with all 3 of her books. This is the first one she wrote, and I very much enjoyed seeing her journey, I guess you would say. She went through a lot through her high school and college years. Her book was very inspirational, and I am looking forward to reading the other 2 that she has. Next we have Funny Story by Emily Henry. Emily Henry is definitely a go-to author for me. Pretty much everything she writes I have enjoyed, and definitely like to pick it up as soon as I can. I was thankful that I was one of the first people to be able to get it from my library, and it did not disappoint. It was a little more emotional than I'm used to books being. I don't like to cry. I hate crying in books. So I was a little worried at some points that it was going to make me cry, but it didn't. But it was really good. Definitely dealt with some issues I think a lot of people might have in lives, in their childhood and things. But it was a great story, and Emily Henry will continue to be one of my go-to authors in the future. The next one we have is The Night Circus. I hardly knew anything about this book when I bought it and when I went into it. And sometimes I like not knowing what I'm getting into. These glasses are driving me nuts. Sometimes I like not knowing what I'm getting into. Sometimes I like not knowing what I'm getting into when I pick up a book. It just makes it more fun to not know everything about it. This was magical. Literally. These people were magical as a whole. You were absorbed in this circus and this story and fighting for the people and like, I don't know how to describe. I don't even know how to describe it, but it was definitely magical. I love this story, and I think I'm gonna look and see what else Erin Morgenstern has written because it was a great story. Next, we have Matched. Obviously, Matched is green. Matched is, I guess you would say, is dystopian. Like the country of this where she lives, they have the society in the society is in charge, and it's like their government, I guess. The society, when you're 18, you get told who your match is, so who your mate or like who you're gonna marry is, and you take testing to see what your job will be. Your job is assigned to you. You don't get to pick anything. They tell you who you're gonna marry, what job you're gonna have, how many kids you're gonna have, and then when you turn 80, on your 80th birthday, you have like a final dinner party thing, and then they off you, basically. You just die on your 80th birthday. When she gets her match, it's her best friend, and she's happy about it. But then when she goes to look at the little computer chip they give her of her match, his is not the only face on the chip. And those kind of mistakes don't happen. So she starts questioning everything. And I am really looking forward to the second and third book to see where this continues to go. Next up, we have The Lady of the Rivers. The Lady of the Rivers is the first book of a 15-book series from Philippa Gregory. It follows Jacquetta of Luxembourg from the time she's really young, and her story and like her marriage and her children and just the ups and downs she has being supportive of one queen, and then the next queen takes over and she's trying to stay in good graces and basically not be killed, because in those times if you were supportive of the wrong person, you were in trouble. So I love this story. I love historical fiction. This is one of my favorite series to read, so I'm probably going to end up trying to fit the rest of these books into TBRs and continue reading this series. Next, we had Better Together. Better Together was my one DNF of the year. I was enjoying this book. It was nostalgic. It was Parent Trap vibes. Sisters finding out that they even had a sister and switching places to meet the other parent that they were not living with. And then we got to a point where they talked about one of the sisters having a crush on the other sister's best friend, who's a girl. And I do not want to read about that. So we DNF'd it, and I will be unhauling this book. Next, we have Little Women. Little Women was a classic pick for this month. I guess I had really high hopes for it because I've heard so many people say it was so good, it's gonna make you cry, it's so emotional, you're gonna love this book, and so on. I did not cry, and quite frankly, I did not care. I could not tell you the reason why, but I had no attachment to these characters. I didn't care what happened. I don't even know how I finished this whole thing because, quite frankly, it was boring. And I just didn't attach to it. I'm glad now I can say that I've read Little Women, but that's about the extent about how I feel about this book. Sorry, not sorry. Next we have The Last Star. The Last Star, I actually ended up listening to this on audiobook. This was the last book in a trilogy. So it finished a little series for me, which is a great accomplishment because I feel like we're constantly starting series and not finishing them. This one also was just mediocre. Wasn't bad. Wasn't good. Don't think I'll ever read it again. Probably going to end up unhauling the whole trilogy just because I don't think I'll ever read it again and I didn't think it was that good. So why keep it on my shelves, you know? I can't say too much about it because it's the third in the series and I don't want to spoil the first couple books if you wanted to pick this up. But anyway, the next one I read was a little novella. So in my July TBR, my daughter picked a book, Delirium, and it's the first in a series, but there's a little prequel novella to it called Annabelle. So I got on my Libby app and found that they had Annabelle. I downloaded it on my Kindle. It was like 95 pages, and I read that in like a day, and it was great. I don't want to say too much about what that is either because it kind of gives you information about what the first book, the Delirium book, is about, and I'll be talking about that later. So we're just moving on. The next one we have is Bringing Up the Bodies. The first one, Wolf Hall, I read last month, and it was mediocre to me. I don't really care for it that much, but we already owned this one and the third one, so we were going to continue with the series. This one, Bringing Up the Bodies, I thought was way better than the first one. This entire book is Henry VIII trying to get a divorce from Anne Boleyn, or separate himself from her, I should say, because he didn't just want a divorce, let's be honest. And this is from the point of view of Thomas Cromwell, and he was like the lawyer. He was the lawyer. So he was charged with figuring out how to get rid of Anne Boleyn. And they planned and schemed and all that stuff to get her out of there. It starts off with Henry VIII just starting to say he doesn't want to be married to her anymore. And this whole book is the scheming and the plotting, ending with her not having a head anymore. So, look forward to the third one and seeing how this trilogy wraps up. I very much enjoyed the second one. Last but not least, we have Hot Dutch Daydream. This one is like The Hot British Boyfriend, same author. This one is kind of like I guess you would say a companion to Hot British Boyfriend. The main girl in the first book is friends with the girl in the second book. This girl was on the study abroad program in the first book, but side person, like side character, best friend. She ends up going to Amsterdam to study and try to further her career a little bit before she goes to college, like get credit. Like I don't know. I'm not a college person. I don't do this. She tries to get more experience and things in oncology before she goes to college, and she can't afford to fly to Amsterdam and stuff. So the doctor that she's working for hires her, pays for her to come over and be a nanny for her little boy in exchange for being part of the lab and like having that experience and being part of the stuff going on in the summer in Amsterdam. What she doesn't account for is that the other son, the older brother, shows up unexpectedly, and it's the first time that she's ever been distracted by her work by a boy. And it's absolutely adorable. And her finding balance between work and a person to be her partner. Like, to not just distract her, but encourage her in her work and things like that. And it was really cute. I say that all the time. Everything's cute, but I really enjoy these little YA romances. They're so sweet and so fluffy and make you happy, and I love them. So that is all the books I've read this month. 12 books plus one DNF, and I think we did a pretty good job. I am already working on next month's TBR for July. It is a busy month. We have camp, we have VBS, we have my birthday. So a lot of stuff going on in July, but should be getting some reading done as usual, because that's what I do. Anyway, if you read any of these books, if you feel differently than I do, if you feel the same, let me know. I'd love to hear it. Let's talk about books, people. Remember that God loves you, and I love you, and you are important.